I'm Sebastian St James. Australians have been tricked into superannuation, and I'm here to tell you why. In a previous video, I was having an interesting conversation with James Taylor. James is one of my channel members. You can see that because his comments have an exclusive star beside them. By the way, if you'd like to support the channel, just hit the join button below. I mean, heck, the government created super, which encourages people to invest in the market. They wouldn't have done that if they thought it wouldn't benefit people in the long run. To which I replied, as to why the government created super, I feel that could be a video topic of its own. So why did the Australian government create superannuation? Statistics show that as of 2016, life expectancy in Australia was 80.4 and 84.6 if you happen to be female. The government predicted this trend and became concerned that the age pension payments would be overwhelming to the country's economy in the future if nothing was done. In 1992, the government made superannuation compulsory to ensure that every working Australian saved for their retirement. Such a good hope. There's a lot tied up in that little passage, so let's delve into it a bit further. Number one, the Australian government predicted there'd be an ageing population, and in fact there has been. I've got the data to prove that. The people over above 65 was 8.61%. As of 2020, the same group is 16.21%. Oh, that's quite a growth. And there it is. Over that 60 years, we've almost doubled the number of people who are over 65. That amount has doubled, so now we have to pay twice as much, right? Well, not quite. To start with, they've slipped up the pension age. It's no longer 65. Depending on the age group, it's more likely to be 67. And secondly, there's something else about the people who are supporting that group. Firstly, the number 15. Apparently, in some states, that's when you can begin to work. If you run a family business, there's no minimum age, but normally it's 15 years and onwards. Our chart, our data has a group which is 15 to 64 years, so we can just go ahead and use that. Although stay in school, children. Do not start working at the age of 15 if you can avoid it. Between the working ages of 15 and 64, there is 61.21% of people that were supporting the 8%. Now, in 2020, there's 64% that's supporting 16%. Retiree boom for sure, but now there's a slight workers boom to help compensate. Secondly, the government was worried it couldn't afford the extra old people. The government is so worried about not being able to afford to fund retirement that's actually slashing tax. I kid you not. What was Morrison's government tax plan? The 2019 tax plan had 3 phases. Let's jump down to phase number 3. That's the one that's about to come in. Abolishes the 37% marginal tax rate completely and lowers
the 32.5% marginal tax rate to 30%. It also raises the threshold for the 45% marginal tax, meaning everybody earning between $45,000 and $200,000 will pay the same 30% tax rate.
Right, a lot of numbers. Hitting you there. Let me break it down, make it simple. The first thing you need to know, if when these tax cuts go through, they will be permanent. No tax cut for a couple of years, which then disappears like some other people got. Here's the tax rates as they stand right now. The first thing you'll notice, from 120,000 upwards, there is a 37% tax rate. That's now abolished, which means that if you earn in that range, you'll now fall down to the lower tax rate, 32.5%. But no, they're going to lower that to 30%. So not only do you not pay the 37%, you don't even pay the 32.5%. I mean, why would you? In addition to those from 120 to 180,000 going down to 30%, we've now taken the upper limit, the 180 up to 200,000. Meaning, if you earn 200,000 or less, then you'll be on the tax rate of 30%, which right now is actually lower than those who earn 45,000, who are currently paying 32.5%. Wow, well, that's a massive tax hole in the government's future plans. Oh yes, it is. So the government wants to slash the amount of tax people who are earning 120 to 200,000 are paying, meaning there'll be less money to pay for pensions. Nobody likes paying tax, including me, but you can't slash the tax inflow while complaining at the same time that the pension outflows are sending you bankrupt. It's exactly the wrong thing to do if you're worried about not being able to meet pensions. Thirdly, the government partly shifted the pension burden from itself to you via superannuation. Aha! That is really what the superannuation guarantee is about. It's about shifting the burden from the government, who's afraid, oh, we won't be able to pay it, particularly if we slash our taxes. Well, that part's true. Onto you, the individual. So let's see how that works. According to Rice Warner, roughly 39% of Australians of pension age receive the full age pension. This is much lower than I thought. So, if you think that the average retiree is actually receiving a full pension, why wouldn't they? They're pensioners after all. No, 39%, that's less than half, are actually on a full pension. So the rest are self-funding. And that's just the way it is in Australia now. But of course it always hasn't been that way. And number 5, super is not a free gift paid by employers. It's forced employee savings that come out of your wages. This is a fascinating question. You go to work, you get your normal wage, plus you get your superannuation guarantee, the award amount on top of that. The question is your employer actually bringing down your wages because they've got this fixed cost, which they've got to pay on top? In other words, your wages is going down by the pressure of superannuation, or is it a free gift that goes on top and you get the same wage anyway? Oh, I wonder what it is. How does a boss work? Well, of course, your super is a direct expense from the boss's point of view. He's thinking, I'm going to pay you $90,000. How much is your super? Right, whatever's left over is what you get to take home as a wage. Super is never a gift from your boss. That's not how expenses work. Conventional wisdom in Australia, informed by economic theory, history and international experience, is that compulsory superannuation ultimately comes at the expense of workers' wages. This working paper, using administrative data on 80,000 federal enterprise agreements made between 1991 and 2018, shows that the long-held conventional wisdom is right. So, what is the trick about superannuation? Well, let me sum it up for you. Number 1, you pay your taxes all your life, hence you're entitled to retire with dignity and with a pension. But now, the government wants you to fund your own retirement yourself. Did you pay tax? Oh, I've forgotten, says the government. A few years ago, the then Prime Minister stood up in front of the news camera and said, what Australians want is a good job and to fund their own retirement. When I heard that, I almost fell over backwards. So he rolled in, everybody wants a good job, sure, fair enough, to suddenly all Australians actively want to fund their own retirement, like it's some dream that they've always been wanting to do. This has now become official government policy. You as an Australian apparently want to. You're desperate to fund your own retirement. It's not that because the pension is so low that you'd be under the poverty line and therefore you need to top it up. No, you want to fund the whole thing because, well, why wouldn't you? I mean, really. During my lifetime, the pension has gone from being a right that you get for paying taxes all your life, it's something you deserve, to now being seen as welfare handout that the country just can't afford. And that didn't take very long at all. Let's find out what the 2 types of superannuation plans actually are. The first one is the defined benefit plan. The second is the defined contribution plan. So with defined benefit plans, you get a defined amount forever. It's not subject to market risk and there's no risk of you outliving it because it will last forever. With the defined contribution plans, you get a defined contribution. That's the defined part. Nothing else is defined. The amount at retirement is unknown. It's subject to market risks. There is a risk of you outliving your super. Australians have moved away from certainty, from defined benefit plans where you knew you're going to get that money forever regardless of how long you lived, to now total risk. You don't know how much you're going to retire with. Well, it depends on the market, doesn't it really? And because you don't know how much you're going to retire with, and you don't know what the cost of living is going forward, you have no idea whether you're going to actually totally run out of your super or not. So, lots of risk in retirement is exactly what every Australian needs when they retire. So, with Australian superannuation, if you're lucky, your super will outperform a defined benefit plan. It's certainly possible. If you're unlucky, you get to die in penury. Wow, that makes me feel so comfortable I can hardly wait to be a pensioner. When I was growing up, defined benefit plans were actually the norm. My parents retired on a defined benefit plans. That means they get a fixed amount of money coming in every fortnight, plus they get free medical. How long does that last for? Well, there's no risk. You'll be paid indefinitely for as long as they live. Seeing they're up in their higher 80s is just as well that there was no cut-off age on their benefits. So, defined contribution, where you get a fixed amount given to you. Defined benefits, where you get a fixed amount paid to you. Do you know in the UK, in certain sections, defined benefits plans are still the norm? So, as you can see there in the dark blue, that large bar, the greatest percentage is actually occupational defined benefit plans. And the lighter blue, which is a tiny sliver, is actually defined contributions. So, say in the public sector in the UK, we find that defined benefit plans are actually the norm. Knowing that defined benefit plans actually have so much more certainty, why did Australia actually move to defined contribution? This comes down to understanding who is actually paying out the defined benefit plan in the first place. With defined benefit plans, the company bears the risk because it's the company that has to pay it out. With defined contribution plans, you bear the risk, not the company. Companies have money. Companies pay that money to politicians. Politicians suddenly see the light and realize that defined contribution plans are so much better than defined benefit plans. And if the risk happens to move from the company, who's just paid the politicians money, over to the individual, surely there's no connection between companies actually paying money to politicians and companies getting what they want? No, there's definitely no connection at all. Despite all the doom and gloom and the responsibility shifting and the added risk, which I've been talking about, there are some silver linings. First of all, superannuation is a way of forced savings for the individual, and saving for your retirement is not a bad thing, even if it has to happen by law. Although there's way more market risk, a lot more, there is some risks which modern superannuation, through its contribution system, actually decreases. What are they? Well, let's say the government says, I'm going to slash the pension by 50%. They say, we cannot afford the pension at its present rate because we slashed the taxes. And so they slash it anyway. Or alternatively, let's say you worked for a big company all your life, but that big company now goes broke. And therefore they don't have the pension ability to pay you. Hopefully it was separated and socked away and there's still money in there, but maybe not. Maybe there was a bit of jiggery-pokery. And so what's happening now, because you're totally reliant on the giving out of other people, which incidentally you earned, it's not a gift, but whatever going forward, if you've got a lot more money which you've been forced to save in superannuation, if the government does slash the pension going forward, which would not surprise me in the least, at least you've been forced to save up a nest egg. That is a silver lining. That leaves me with one question. How do you not go broke in retirement? Click here to find out.